Renee Nicole Good. Renee Nicole Good. 37 years old. Award-winning poet, artist, movie lover, mother of 3 children, a daughter, 2 sons. She has been murdered by an ICE agent in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And I just want to talk about who she is for a second, just real quick. Not that I'm some expert on who this person was, but from what we know, I just wanted to talk about her as a person for just a second before the whole world begins to use her, label her, designate her, martyr, terrorist, Antifa. There's going to be a lot of labels from both sides on her, and I just want to talk about her for just a second before this begins. She had 3 kids. She was an award-winning poet. She was a U.S. citizen. And I just want to take a second to note that not one federal agency or spokesperson, not once, has mentioned that she was a U.S. citizen or mentioned her name. That is very much by design. That is an effort to dehumanize this person. That is an effort to depict this situation where those of us in this country who aren't interested in checking on what the authorities tell you or finding out some more facts, orienting themselves, getting situated in reality. See, there's some of us who don't want to do any of that. What they do want to do is hear Kristi Noem or Donald Trump or anybody from this administration describe this person in a way that they can reasonably get to A to B. 1, if there wasn't an illegal immigration problem in this country. 2, there wouldn't be a dead woman. There wouldn't be a dead anybody. They are purposefully trying to dehumanize Renee Nicole Good because it is to their ends. Whoop. There you go. Scotty was trying to get in my ear. Yeah. Domestic terrorism is how they would like to label this. And if you don't go digging for the facts, you can be comfortable taking this to the water cooler. That is the effect. That is what they're trying to do. She graduated from Old Dominion in December of 2020 with an English degree. The university's president, Brian O. Hemphill, said this is yet another clear example that fear and violence have sadly become commonplace in our nation. May Renee's life be a reminder of what unites us: freedom, love, and peace. She's originally from Colorado Springs. She used to do a podcast with her ex-husband, who passed in 2023, leaving her, responsible for the children. Poet, artist, loved mother, wife, murdered. She was murdered. Now I'm going to set the scene for you and then play the videos we have that we want to share with you, that we feel give you the best angles and view and clarity to orient yourself on what happened if you haven't seen the video or just saw it, peripherally, while you're doing something else. We want you to take a good look at what happened. But before I show you, I'm going to set up the scene. Moments before the shooting, the victim's maroon SUV stopped in the middle of the street where there was ICE activity. Multiple unmarked federal vehicles were idling nearby. Okay. Now, Kristi Noem alleges that she was trying to block these officers. That's what she alleges. The federal vehicles in unison hit their lights and approached the SUV, approached Renee. Okay. One of them was recording, and you'll see it in the video. One of them was recording. Whoop. Not yet. One of them was recording. Okay. Recording the whole thing. One of the agents. The SUV pulls up and stops again. Pulls up slightly, stops again as she sees the activity. okay? And then where we're going to pick up the video is from there, after she moved just slightly again and stopped again, where Kristi Noem claims that she was blocking the traffic.
Here's how events unfolded. Moments before the shooting, the victim's maroon SUV is stopped in the middle of the street. Multiple unmarked federal vehicles are idling nearby. Secretary Noem alleged the motorist, quote, was blocking the officers in. Bystanders are blowing whistles and yelling at federal agents.
Go home to Texas!
Then, federal vehicles start moving toward the maroon SUV, with sirens and lights blaring. A federal agent films the scene on his phone. The driver rolls forward slightly, turning left, then stops and waves for others to go ahead. Two agents exit this silver pickup and walk toward the vehicle. Moments later, shots are fired. Let's look at the scene again more closely. This is the agent who shoots the driver. He walks around the car filming and disappears from view. Other agents pull up and order the driver to exit her vehicle. One of them grabs at the door handle and reaches inside. The SUV reverses, then turns right, apparently attempting to leave. At the same time, the agent filming crosses toward the left of the vehicle and grabs his gun. He opens fire on the motorist and continues shooting as she drives past. The moment the agent fires, he is standing here, to the left of the SUV, and the wheels are pointing to the right, away from the agent. This appears to conflict with allegations that the SUV was ramming or about to ram the officer. President Trump and others said the federal agent was hit by the SUV, often pointing to another video filmed.
All right. So you saw what you just saw. We all just saw the same thing in pretty clear quality. Now, I want to raise a point. I'm going to raise a few points. I have a few things to say about this. But I want to bring up this point first. And Scotty, he brought this to my attention too as we were watching the video. He posed this as we were discussing it, and he was making a great point. Where is the version of events from that officer's camera? What was his vantage point? Why haven't we heard anything about that being released? Not mentioned by officials, not mentioned by the police, by ICE or, Noem or anybody. Nobody is talking about that person's video from his phone, the shooter who was recording it. We need that video. We need to see what he saw. It's crucial. It's crucial. And here's one problem. Maybe the reason we're not hearing about this from law enforcement officials in Minneapolis and Minnesota is because they have been blocked from investigating this event. Blocked. This is going to be an FBI-only investigation. They have been blocked, barred from an investigation of a fatal shooting in their city and their state. Let's be clear about that right now. So when we talk about irregularities in the investigation, evidence that should be obviously released to the public or at least being mentioned as to be reviewed, it's Cash's job now. Social media superstar and multi-time, mistake maker when it comes to these investigations, what's released, what's not released, what do we talk about to the press and whatnot. About the worst person I could think of to be handling something like this is handling something like this. It's a shame. There was an eyewitness account. All right. We're not going to do a lot. There was a few. Some we eliminated,
I was leaving this morning to go get groceries. As I was leaving, I heard honking and a lot of honking and a lot of yelling. I live in the other side of this alleyway over here, so I ran down the alley. As soon as I got to the end of the alley, I heard 2 gunshots and a car crash, a really hard car crash, and then I heard yelling. And the next thing you know, I got in my car. I came out here, and I came through here. It was nothing but ICE agents blocking the whole block. street. And as I'm driving by, it was a red truck and nothing but the airbags and full of blood, and there was a body on the streets. It was a woman. I saw when they were trying to take her away. Yes, she's dead.
That woman was Renee Nicole Good. Eventually, our amateur filmmaker there and murderer, he approached the car after it had crashed, took a look at what had happened to Renee, and called his fellow officers to call 911. At that point, and we'll get into what happened right then and there, but at that point, most of the officers jumped back in their vehicles, trampled all over a murder scene, a crime scene, and sped away. You got that there?
From a different angle. And it's true that at this moment in this grainy, low-resolution footage, it does look like the agent is being struck by the SUV. But when we synchronize it with the first clip, we can see the agent is not being run over. In fact, his feet are positioned away from the SUV. The SUV crashes into a white car parked down the road. A bystander runs toward the collision. The federal agents on scene do not appear to rush to provide emergency medical care. Eventually, the agent who shot the motorist approaches the vehicle. Seconds later, he turns back around and tells his colleagues to call 911.
Shame! You shot someone! You shot someone!
Agents block several bystanders who attempt to provide medical care,
We'll get to
including
that.
one who identifies himself as a physician.
I go check a pulse.
No! Back up! Now!
I'm a physician.
I don't care!
At the same time, several agents, including the agent who opened fire, get in their vehicles and drive off, apparently altering the active crime scene.
Okay. So, not only can our local officials barred from investigating this scene has been already altered and trampled all over by ICE. And as that video detailed, one man who identified himself as a physician was actively blocked by ICE agents from providing medical assistance to Renee Good as she lay dying. Oh, we're going to dissect that. We're going to unpack that. We're going to talk about the implications of that as well. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. These ICE agents have quite a bit to explain and answer for. And we're going to talk about the explanations and the justifications that are being provided to them by this administration and Republicans in Congress. But there's going to be a time when they're going to have to explain for themselves, because there is implications to this.
It's time for a quick break, then we break some more. You're listening to Brett Breaks Things. Breaking news, breaking rules, breaking through. Back to Brett Breaks Things.
Okay, before we jump back in, and I got a few things to say about this, and then we're going to examine that blocking of medical aid that I just mentioned. We're going to examine that real quick, but I do have to address this. As those of you who know me or watch me for a while, and God forbid you're somebody close to me, family member, wife, you know I'm a little sarcastic and facetious at times. Like when I told you guys that this was a prop. Apparently there is a discussion brewing amongst my viewers whether this is real or not. I'm here to tell you, I've read every piece of paper here. Everyone has been read. I was being a little facetious at that point. Every one of these have been read, but there's a sub-narrative. Like every good drama has a sub-story, right, that's brewing beneath the main narrative. And the sub-story, the dramatic sub-narrative of the Brett Breaks Things show is, when is this pile going to collapse this table with all of this equipment on it? And I'm here for the drama. I'm here for the drama. So this pile for now is going nowhere. And by the way, you should check me out on TikTok. Follow me on TikTok. Help out the show. I know you may not like it, but exposure and growing our TikTok presence actually helps the show quite a bit. And at one point, if it's grown large enough, could help monetize the show. And if you go to my TikTok, Brett Breaks Things, easy to find, you can see a running timeline of this thing growing. It's pretty impressive. It's like one of those fast forward motion videos of like nature of, a mall that has been abandoned, getting overgrown, whatever. You get it. You should check it out. It's pretty good. Now, I do have a few things to say before we continue about this. One, I'm going to start with there are other ways to protest. There are smarter ways to protest. I'm not blaming Renee for what happened to Renee. I am blaming that ICE agent that murdered her. What I'm saying is, when we talked about the first No King's Day Parade and when we talked about the second No King's Day Parade, one of my running narratives, one of my running messages was be smart, be safe, be peaceful. This falls under be smart. You got to be smart about these things. And I'm submitting that using a running vehicle, involving a running vehicle in any way in your protest, even by sitting in one while you protest, is not the best way to go about this. They are brainwashed, these ICE agents. Some are born from hate and bigotry and violence and sadism. Some are. But many of them have been brainwashed that if you are out with these crowds, that you are a leftist, terrorist, Antifa actor. When I told Rod how proud I was of him, it wasn't just because Rod and I share political beliefs, our political, beliefs and philosophies align. When Rod went to the No King's Day Parade in Syracuse, I told him I was proud of him, not just because I was proud of his message. I was proud of him because that is a brave thing to do. Because Rod, immediately, in the eyes of ICE agents, goes from my loving stepfather, who I know to be a peaceful, just man, to an Antifa, leftist, terrorist actor. That's why I was proud of him as well. That goes for every single one of you who attend a protest. In the eyes of these FBI agents, in the eyes of these ICE agents, you are a terrorist. And they are itching to shoot you. Prove to this administration that they are the guy. Prove to their fellow officers that they're here for the real deal. They're here to submit themselves. They are fully in. They're all in. They are dedicated to President Trump and Stephen Miller's immigration policy and plan and action. They are itching to shoot you and let the administration do the justification. And let the right-wing, think tanks and podcasters justify it for you. Make it make sense. Make it okay. Dehumanize the victim. Blame the victim. I also want to say this. The left or politically unaligned Americans who see this clearly for what it was, we are screaming how obvious it is that this is murder. We're screaming it. It just seems so obvious to anybody who has a moral compass, clear eyes, who has not been brainwashed or part of a cult. It seems clear to us. Meanwhile, the right, once again, is telling you you didn't see what you just saw. That is pretty much their last trick in the bag when it comes to shaping the narrative and the headlines and how you feel about this. They're out of tricks. Their game is so obvious. They say the quiet parts out loud. They lie. All they have left is to simply tell their base or anybody who will listen, you didn't see what you just saw. You didn't hear what you heard. You didn't read what you read. And you didn't see what you just saw. The right now is contorting itself and twisting itself, twisting the video, twisting the narrative, trying to convince us that we didn't just see what we saw, a woman get murdered. And, you know, when we talked about the No King's Day parades and protests, and other protests, the immigration protests in LA and Portland, when we talk about them, I keep saying you can't give them a justification to increase military presence. You can't give them a justification for these federal troop movements and all of these federal agents' presence in your city. If you attack these people, if you hurt these people, God forbid, kill one of these people, Trump will have the green light. I never imagined that they would use them, their agents, their federal presence, killing one of us to justify this. But that's just what we're seeing happening as they're threatening to ramp up federal presence in Minneapolis, accusing the officials in Minnesota of letting the city burn in the past, and they're not going to let that happen again. They're talking about an increase in federal and military presence in the wake of them shooting us. Didn't see that one coming. Didn't see that one coming. Now, we're going to get to this blocking of medical assistance, but I want to bring to your attention that Renee Nicole Good's wife was there. She arrived with her wife, a woman named Becca Good. Becca Good now blames herself. She said, quote, "I made her come down here. It's my fault. They just shot my wife." That was at the time, right when it happened. She's screaming. They shot her in the head. I have a 6-year-old girl in school. Well, Kristi Noem calls her a domestic terrorist. A domestic terrorist. Kristi Noem says that she weaponized her car. Becca Good claims that her and her wife, Renee, were new to the area, and they had nobody to call. She had nobody to call for help, to come, to be there. There was nobody. She was so frantic, her dog was trying to run away. While she's trying to process the murder of her wife, her dog's trying to run away. She's asking federal agents, can you help me? Can you at least grab the leash out of my car? You just shot my wife. The agents ignored her. Ignored her. She ran to her wife and held her and tried to help her, covered in her wife's blood. And that is when a citizen attempted to approach Renee Nicole Good to provide her medical assistance. And ICE agents blocked the medical assistance actively. We got to go a little ahead. Hold on. Sorry about that.
Dude, what's happening to her? What happened?
Okay. Dude, you shot her. I'm trying to help. No. You fucking shot someone in the fucking face.
Sorry about the cussing.
You shot someone in the fucking face. Do you have a conscience? Do you have a conscience? Don't let the murderer leave! Don't let the murderer leave!
All right, so there was a better... Scotty and I got our videos mixed up a little bit, but that shows them blocking, and Scotty's got a better one. I just got yelled at for using the wrong video. And I should have. I pulled the wrong one for that one, but that one did show the blocking. And sorry about the cussing. Do apologize for that. So, do you have it there? Okay, he's got it quickly. Well done, Scotty. He's got it quickly.
Go check a pulse.
No! Back up! Now!
I'm a physician.
I don't care.
We understand. We got EMS coming. I get it. Just give us a second.
We have medics on scene. We have our own medics.
Where are they? Where are they? How can I relax? You just killed my neighbor. You caught butter in the face. You killed my neighbor. How do you show up to work every day? How the do you do this every day? You're killing my neighbors. You're stealing my neighbors. What the man? Go check a pulse.
No!
Okay. The 14th Amendment makes it illegal to block medical aid. All right? The 14th Amendment makes it illegal to block medical aid. And because the shooting was not in self-defense, any officer who blocks medical aid can be charged with murder themselves. Okay? EMS services are supposed to make their own evaluation if they can approach safely somebody who has been shot in a crime scene. Unless their entering that scene will pose a threat to anybody else, or maybe they could be taken hostage, risk to anybody in any way. Unless the police deem definitively that EMS coming to somebody's aid or a doctor coming to somebody's aid will make the situation worse, they are allowed to be there. In this particular case that we are watching, not only can the officer who shot Renee Nicole Good be charged with murder, every officer who assisted in blocking medical attention can also be charged with murder. And there is Supreme Court precedent for this. Estelle v. Gamble, 1976, established that deliberate indifference to serious medical needs violates the Eighth Amendment, cruel and unusual punishment. And City of Revere versus Massachusetts General Hospital in 1983, that dealt with the 14th Amendment and its due process clause, which requires the government to provide medical care to anyone who is in custody. So the question is, in terms of this, was Renee Nicole Good in custody? According to the law and the 14th Amendment, she was in custody the moment they shot her. She was in custody the moment they shot her. Officers who injure anyone during an arrest must, by law, immediately summon aid. Any aid, immediately, and allow them to help. If not, it's called deliberate indifference. Deliberate indifference. And that is what they will be charged with. Those are the laws that they will be looking at to charge these men. There will be debate on whether she was in custody. I'm just playing it down the road, long gaming it. There will be debates. There will be debates about whether she was in custody. There will. They're going to have a lot of motions to get this thing tossed. Because they're going to get charged with murder. They're going to get charged with murder. Unfortunately, the investigation will be handled by the FBI. So, the two most prominent men in the Trump administration, Marco Rubio and Stephen Miller. Do you think either of those men, especially considering Stephen Miller's immigration policy led to this is Stephen Miller's doing, do you think either of those men will allow Kash Patel to exact any amount of justice in this, if he can help it? If Minnesota or Minneapolis were allowed to conduct the investigation, I would hold out hope that there would be a modicum of justice exacted here. But now with the FBI leading the investigation, I just don't know.
We'll be back to break it all down. You're listening to Brett Breaks Things. Brett breaks things, fighting for America one mic drop at a time.
I've spoken to the president today on the situation here on the ground. I also just got off the phone a little while ago with Governor Walz and spoke to him as well. I want to reiterate first with all of you the facts of what happened today. At 10:25 a.m. Central Time, Immigration and Customs Enforcement were carrying out lawful operations here in Minneapolis. Because of the adverse weather that Minneapolis has seen in recent snow, one of the vehicles became stuck and ensnared in the snow. Law enforcement were attempting to push out this vehicle, and when a mob of agitators that were harassing them all day began blocking them in, shouting at them, and impeding law enforcement operations. ICE officers and agents approached the vehicle of the individual in question, who was blocking the officers in with her vehicle, and she had been stalking and impeding their work all throughout the day. ICE agents repeatedly ordered her to get out of the car and to stop obstructing law enforcement, but she refused to obey their commands. She then proceeded to weaponize her vehicle and attempted to run a law enforcement officer over. This appears as an attempt to kill or to cause bodily harm to agents, an act of domestic terrorism. The ICE officer, fearing for his life and the other officers around him and the safety of the public, fired defensive shots. He used his training to save his own life and that of his colleagues. He was treated at a local hospital, has been released, and is now with family.
Can you imagine if your mother, sister, grandmother, aunt, wife was shot in the head and died by the hand of an ICE agent, and Kristi Noem from the Department of Homeland Security goes to a podium and calls her a domestic terrorist? Even as somebody who would consider that, even if you consider yourself an empathic, right? Somebody who has, maybe more empathy than other people. You feel things very strongly, a lot. You would be unequipped to empathize with what her wife and her children must be feeling right now. You'd fail. I don't care. I don't care how sensitive you are. There is no way we could possibly properly empathize with her family and her loved ones right now. And that's what Kristi Noem has to say. John Roberts had a couple things to say on Fox News, which I found interesting.
He then said, "Get the F out of this city," to those ICE agents. John.
Yeah, I've seen the video several times as well. I've kind of gone through it frame by frame. I don't want to describe it because you can't see the entire scene play out. There's an area in front of the vehicle that is obscured by the vehicle itself, so we don't know 100% what happened during that incident. But what I saw, it does counteract the narrative that they were trying to push their car out of the snow. The ICE agents who were involved here, because that vehicle was clearly in the middle of the street as it was approached by a couple of federal agents before it sped off. So again, we'll wait until we get clearance to look at this video and have eyes that are more expert than mine.
Yeah, you better take it easy with some of that truth telling on Fox. Better take it easy, John. So, protests have sparked. Outrage, protest, condemnation. It has begun. Several hundred people went to the intersection where this happened immediately, all night. They were shouting at ICE agents, bleep Trump, bleep ICE, get the bleep out, all night long. There was a vigil held, flowers, candles, balloons. All of that continued into this morning. Protests have broken out nationwide. People are surrounding federal buildings in Minneapolis. A lot of outrage. And Jacob Frey, the mayor of Minneapolis, had some things to say.
There's little I can say, again, that'll make this situation better, but I do have a message for our community, for our city, and I have a message for ICE. To ICE, get the fuck out of Minneapolis.
We already swore, so what?
We do not want you here. Your stated reason for being in
Wow.
this city is to create some kind of safety, and you are doing exactly the opposite. People are being hurt. Families are being ripped apart. Long-term Minneapolis residents that have contributed so greatly to our city, to our culture, to our economy are being terrorized, and now somebody is dead. That's on you. And it's also on you to leave. It's on you to make sure that further damage, further loss of life and injury is not done. We're going to be working towards justice as quickly as we possibly can right now, and justice is what we've all got to get.
Well, Jacob Fry, you are now officially on the list. You know, that list. The list of enemies, terrorists, people who need retribution enacted upon them. Whatever the name on top of the list is, you're on it, Jacob. I'm on it. Scotty may be on it. You're on it. Officially, Jacob. These comments here, that is the type of thing that Don notices. This will not go unanswered in some form. Maybe it'll be a True Social post. Maybe it'll be at a gaggle. Maybe it'll be something more actionable. Maybe troops show up in your city all of a sudden. But make no mistake about it, Jacob Fry, although I love what you had to say, you're on a list, bud. You're on that list. He said more.
I've seen a lot of Republicans here in Washington criticizing those comments, saying that you're escalating tensions with that. Can you respond to them, and what do you say to them tonight, people who criticize those comments?
I'm so sorry if I offended their Disney princess ears, but here's the thing. If we're talking about what's inflammatory, on the one hand, you got someone who dropped an F-bomb, and on the other hand, you got someone who killed somebody else. F-bomb, killing somebody. I think the more inflammatory action is killing somebody. And so, once again, let's be real and just honest and straight up about what's happening here. This is not okay. The way they're coming into cities, not just Minneapolis, but around the country, is not okay. Whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, you should understand the importance of constitutional law enforcement. You should understand the importance of not discriminating based on race and randomly plucking people off the street because they're Somali or Latino. And especially from what we've seen, you should also understand the importance of de-escalating tense situations, not killing people and yanking out a gun. And so, again, I'm not going to preempt the investigation. It is important that we do that. And at the same time, you know, you want to make a big deal about an F-bomb, let's make a big deal about our Constitution. I think that's probably the better route.
Anybody now a new fan of Jacob Fry, where he wasn't quite on our radar before? Maybe a little bit. Minnesota has been in the news cycle, obviously, in the recent past, but I'm now officially a big fan of Jacob Fry. Like what this dude has to say. Worried about our Constitution rather than his F-bomb. And I like what some other people have to say as well. We're going to hear from some other people when I come back. And I want to focus, we're going to hear from some filthy Republicans. But I want to hear from people in Minnesota. I want to hear what lawmakers in Minnesota have to say.
Breaking politics, breaking narratives, breaking news. But first, we need a coffee break. You're back with Brett Breaks Things, where the truth hits harder than the headlines.
You know what? We're going to show you another hero. We're going to show you another hero real quick as we refer back to that Jacob Frey of clip of his strong words, the F-bomb. Watch this. Watch the translator specifically. Watch the translator on the right.
And I have a message for ICE. To ICE, get the fuck out of Minneapolis. We do not want you here.
Okay.
Your stated reason.
She makes me want to get into sign language. She makes me want to be a signer. That was amazing. Just bam, boom. Didn't hear him? Bang. Take that with you. Okay. All right. Amazing. All right. Let's hear from some Republicans real quick. Let's hear from J.D. Vance on X. The entire administration stands behind ICE officers, saying in a separate post that the woman's death was a tragedy of her own making. Despicable. Even if you feel that way, why do you feel you need to go on X and say that? A woman is dead. A woman's dead. But you know why. It's just another talking piece. Just another mouthpiece. Just another loyal foot soldier who has to run to the nearest microphone or post as quickly as possible to defend everything this administration does, and in this case, by extension, everything this administration's officers do. Even if you feel that way, why? A woman is dead. 3 children have lost their mother. A wife has lost her partner. Some Republicans in Congress defended ICE, cited a spike in assaults on federal administration officers. Tommy Tuberville, one of the biggest scumbags to ever be elected to Congress in our country's history. He's a very, I mean, the type of vitriol that comes out of Tommy Tuberville, it's this mixture of old-timey, Southern fried racism with a savvy understanding of the Trump agenda and a framing of it in front of cameras. A dangerous, disgusting racist, Tommy Tuberville. He, of course, is willing to chime in defense of these officers. Blamed the shooting on radical leftist rioters. What'd I tell you? And encourages ICE agents, quote, if you are violently attacked, shoot back. Because that's what he wants to see. He wants to see violent attacks, and he wants to see people die as a result. This is what he'd like to see. This man is a demon. I'm not sure what circle of hell he's from, but he is definitely a demon. Let's hear from some of the people who run Minnesota. Just real quick. Tim Walz, governor, blamed the federal surge of immigration enforcement in Minneapolis for the violence. In a news conference, he issued a warning order. And I want you to listen to this part. I'm going to stop for a second. He issued a warning order to the Minnesota National Guard to be prepared to help protect public safety in case of another disruption. Okay. Scotty, I'm going to be a panicking. You ready? I'm going to do that thing again. I'm going to be a panicking. You ready? What happens if Governor Walz calls in the Minnesota National Guard to suppress the violent actions of ICE agents? And then Donald Trump activates the Texas National Guard to go north and suppress the actions of the Minnesota National Guard. I'm just going to let that sit there like a fart in an elevator. It stinks. And it's lingering because of the way this president uses our National Guard as his personal army. And how will he react when his personal army is activated for a justifiable cause like protecting the citizens of Minnesota? What a novel idea. All the different ways Trump has found to use our National Guard. How about that? How about a way they're meant to be used by its governor activating them to protect the people? That is a scenario that scares me. Tim Walz continued, we do not need any further help from the federal government. He said this administration is governing by reality TV. Today, the recklessness cost somebody their lives. Let's hear from the Lieutenant Governor, Peggy Flanagan. She wrote on social media that the surge was never about public safety. It was about stoking fear and chaos. Today's horrific shooting made that abundantly clear, calling on Minnesotans to stay peaceful and not give the administration the chaos they are hoping for. Well, it looks like, Peggy, that us being peaceful is not going to be enough to keep this administration from ramping up the pressure. Us being peaceful isn't enough for that now. Now their wanton murder is enough for the administration to apply more pressure. Them not being peaceful, them being violent and murderous is enough. You thought being peaceful was going to get it done and keep this president at bay? No. They're going to get their goals achieved one way or another. Ilhan Omar, rep in the House, you know who she is, comes out of Trump's mouth enough. My heart breaks for the victim's family, who will have to forever live with the pain caused by the Trump administration's reckless and deadly actions. And I want to bring you this little tidbit. You see, the New York Times was at the White House when this news began to break. They were conducting other interviews, but they were right there near the president when this development happened, when the shooting happened, when the murder happened. And they immediately seized on the opportunity to ask Don about it in real time, which is not Don's forte. Don's brain don't work so good no mo. Doesn't think real cognitively and quickly and critically anymore, if he ever did. He immediately said to the reporters, the woman was at fault because she tried to run over the officer. He said, I want to see nobody get shot. I want to see nobody screaming and trying to run over a policeman either. He immediately, in an attempt to defend his point, he grabbed an aide and he ran. He said, he got an aide and said, run and get me a laptop with the video queued up. This aide scurried away to do his bidding. And Trump continued. He said that was a vicious situation that took place, referring to Miss Good trying to run over the officer, he explained. He stuck to his position. And the New York Times reporters, they pointed out inconsistencies. And they asked, in your mind, President Trump, was firing into that vehicle acceptable? And Trump responded to that, she behaved horribly. And then she ran him over. She didn't try to run him over. She ran him over. The New York Times reporter then said, well, the videos are kind of unclear, but the clearest video, that's not what it shows. And then by that time, the aide had returned with the less clear video. There's another video going around right-wing circles that's from a different angle that it's a little less clear if she had actually hit the officer or not. But we showed you the clearer, closer, better angle at the beginning of the show that shows that he was not hit in any way. Was he hit? The president doesn't care about that kind of reality. And he plays the video for these reporters. And the reporters say, this angle didn't show that the officer got hit. And Trump said, well, the way I look at it, and then he trails off, not finishing that sentence. Then he stops looking at the video, shoos away the aide, and continues and says, look, it's a terrible scene. I think it's horrible to watch. I hate to see it. That's why this aide has to go away with it, because this reporter made a great point about that angle sucking and not really being able to deduce what happened by it. So you go away. I don't want to watch it. I can't watch it anymore, says Trump. I can't watch it anymore. The reporter asked, did this fatal shooting mean that the ICE operation has gone too far? And Trump completely sidestepped that question and said, failed Biden immigration policy led to this. Of course he did. And so now the battle lines have been drawn. The battle lines have been drawn, and it played out in the House in one instance between Angie Craig, rep from Minnesota, Democratic rep from Minnesota, and Tom Emmer, Republican rep from Minnesota. They got in a little tiff. It became a thing. You want to see it? Let's check it out. It became a thing. You will see on the right side of the screen a much shorter in stature Craig in the face of Tom Emmer. Do you see her on the right side center? She's shaking her hand in his face. And it gets more and more heated. The reps around them try to ignore the situation, but then it became too much for them to ignore. As you see, they start to turn their heads and take notice of this heated exchange. And Angie Craig is like a dog with a bone, man. She is not letting it go. She is in his face, pointing his chest. He responds. They respond back and forth. And then Emmer disengages from the conversation. Now, Rep. Betty McCullen, also from Minnesota, eventually came and rushed Angie away, tried to regain composure with Angie. Craig told Emmer, who had previously already defended the ICE officers in the wake of this shooting, had already defended it. Craig told Emmer that Republicans' political stunts in Minnesota got a woman killed. Emmer told her, take a walk. Take a walk. Yeah, let's hear from Angie. Let's hear from Angie. We've heard some other people, but let's hear from Angie talking about it herself.
President Trump and his administration will try to justify their meddling in Minnesota, and they will continue to lie and say it's about keeping folks safe. But Minnesotans know that isn't true. It's a flat-out lie. Today, the president's political stunt got a woman killed. Trump's actions have never been about keeping people safe. They've never been about catching criminals.
Okay. You hear the music. We will be back. I want to update you a little bit on Venezuela. I'm going to catch you up. First of all, before that, I'm going to catch you up on some of these other shootings, just so we can orient ourselves. Is this an isolated incident? This Good killing? No, it's not. Is this the only person who has died by the hands of an ICE agent? No, it is not. So we're going to orient ourselves on where we are with this ICE violence. Then we're going to get into Venezuela briefly. And then I'm going to give you just a little taste of that 13-page Atlantic article on Stephen Miller. I'm just going to give you some juicy bits because I promised it. So we're coming back long. But Craig, not mincing words, Ocasio-Cortez, they're disappearing people off the street, and this has nothing to do with citizenship at all. It's increasingly who they're going after. Robin Kelly, Democrat from Illinois, she says she plans to introduce articles of impeachment for Kristi Noem. Quote, Secretary Kristi Noem is an incompetent leader, a disgrace to our democracy, and I'm impeaching her for obstruction of justice, violation of public trust, and self-dealing. We'll be right back.
It's time for a quick break, then we break some more. You're listening to Brett Breaks Things. Brett Breaks Things, fighting for America one mic drop at a time.
All right, so let's orient ourselves real quick. Let's catch up with ICE and their victims list. Their list of people they have shot. Just in case you were wondering, at some point, was this an isolated incident? Of course not. There was one other person killed on September 12th, 2025. All these are this year. September 12th, Silverio Villegas Gonzalez was fatally shot after a traffic stop with immigration agents during Operation Midway Blitz. He tried to flee. An agent was hit. When he was fleeing, they shot him and killed him. Also in Operation Midway Blitz, a Border Patrol agent named Charles Exum shot Miramar Martinez 5 times in Chicago, accused of ramming her vehicle into a DHS vehicle. Lawyers actually successfully won a motion to dismiss all her charges. They successfully argued that it was the agents who hit her car and they put her in danger and they used excessive force. They were successful in that motion. She survived. The rest of these survived, thank God, all the way up to Miss Good, who did not. But the rest I'm going to tell you real quickly, they survived. On October 21st, TikTok content creator Carlitos Ricardo Perias, better known as Richard LA 18, was shot and injured by a ricochet bullet during an altercation with immigration officers. They said he was trying to evade arrest and attempted to ram agents with his vehicle. He has been charged, not let off the hook yet. He has been charged. October 29th, during a traffic stop in Phoenix, Arizona, ICE agents stopped Jose Garcia Soto of Honduras. He pulled over originally. When the agents approached his car, he got scared. He began to drive away a little bit. ICE said that there was an officer in his path. They shot him. He was hospitalized and in stable condition. Charged. November 3rd, 2025. Carlos Jimenez, a U.S. citizen, was shot in the shoulder by an immigration agent in Ontario, California, east of Los Angeles. Jimenez approached ICE officers to ask them to move away from a bus stop that is used by local kids. Okay, so local kids were gathering at this bus stop that the ICE agents had surrounded. The ICE agents approached his car with a canister of tear gas, about to throw it in. Jimenez tried to reverse to avoid getting a tear gas canister thrown in his face. The ICE officer, fearing for his life, fired defensive shots, injuring Carlos Jimenez. And Tiago Alexander Sousa Martins of Portugal was shot by DHS agents in Glen Burnie, Maryland, while driving a van. They say he tried to ram them. They shot him. He has been charged. There is not an equivalent amount of incidences of ICE agents being assaulted, shot, killed, I promise you. And yet, you've got the administration saying things like Tim Walz would let Minnesota burn. Jacob Frey would let Minneapolis burn, and we won't let that happen. So, before we move on, let's just keep the tally straight. An unconstitutional immigration policy and overzealous actions and murder by an ICE agent has resulted in Miss Good's death. This murder will spark protests and condemnation, and those protests will allow our president to justify more federal presence in Minneapolis, which could lead to more violence, more condemnation and protests, more federal presence, more violence. You see how this works? The situation is ongoing. Rest in peace, Renee Nicole Good. All right. I want to catch us up on Venezuela real quick with our extra time here. Okay? Now, I brought you the story yesterday of the 50 million barrels of Venezuelan oil that is now Trump's spoils of war. Congress has taken notice. Especially those in the Appropriations Committee, because the Appropriations essentially controls the purse strings of our government. The Appropriations decides where and how we spend money. And like everything this president does, how he plans to spend this money and what he plans to do with this money and where it will go is unconstitutional and in violation of our laws. Of course, it always is. Everything he does is. This is the effects of immunity. What does he care? What does he care? Break the law over and over and over again. Violate the Constitution over and over and over again. Leave it to the Supreme Court to justify his actions and let him off the hook. And if they should not, if they do not, if that fails, well, you need to look at his subordinates for retribution. You need to look at his subordinates to be responsible for this and face any consequences. Not Don. What does he care? And once again, in violation of the Constitution, he and his cronies are claiming we're going to do what we want to do with this money. This money from the 50 million barrels of oil, we're going to do what we want to do with it. Democrats and others in Congress are pissed about this. Chris Van Hollen, the president cannot grab Venezuela's oil for his own slush fund. Period. The bottom line is their plan is insane. Chris Murphy, take Venezuela's oil at gunpoint and use it to run the country from D.C. America is nation building again. America's nation building again. Yep. That's what it looks like. That's what it looks like. Now, even though there is no plan set on how they're going to get the money, keep it, and then spend it as they see fit. There's no plan. They haven't explained anything. Trump is so confident. It's so comfortable going to social media. This oil will be sold at its market price, and that money will be controlled by me as the president of the United States to ensure it is used to the benefit of the people of Venezuela and the United States. You see, the Constitution vests power for deciding how federal dollars are spent with Congress, just like the Constitution has decided that going to war is an action that needs to go through Congress, but Trump doesn't care about that, now does he? Doesn't care about that. So why would he care in this case either? So once again, he steps over Congress and the Appropriations Committee. And by the way, Chris Van Hollen, who I quoted to you, he is the member, he is a Democratic member of the Appropriations Committee, not the chair or the, I don't think he's the minority head, but he is a member of the Appropriations Committee. So they are sounding off already on this. The people who need to be aware are aware, but just be aware what the Constitution says. Plainly, no money shall be drawn from the Treasury, but in consequence of appropriations made by law. Federal law also prohibits the executive branch from spending money in excess of amounts approved by Congress. Quite simply, money from this oil needs to go through the Treasury Department, and the president does not get to decide how to spend it without congressional approval. Period. Trump doesn't care about that. Like the White House ballroom, which is financed strictly through private financing to demolish and rebuild a ballroom on federal grounds in federal property. He doesn't care. He doesn't care. And Marco Rubio comes out and says the quiet part out loud once again, saying quite simply in a closed briefing with, briefings with House Republicans, I believe he was talking to. In closed briefings with House Republicans, he said simply, the money generated by the sale of Venezuelan oil would not be deposited in the U.S. Treasury. Boom. We're not doing that. We're not following the Constitution. Quote, we're going to sell it in the marketplace at market rates, not at the discounts Venezuela was getting. That money will be then handled in such a way that we will control how it is dispersed in a way that benefits the Venezuelan people, not corruption, not the regime. Don't forget, we've seen this little dance before. Trump promising you, the American people, that he was going to take revenue from his tariffs and send us a $2,000 check. Remember that? That got kind of quiet again, didn't it? Because even White House officials, after he said that nonsense, basically said the check is not in the mail. They say they later acknowledged that the House and the Senate approval would be required to do such a thing. Just like this. Just like trying to sell and then use this money from the oil sales any way they see fit without going through the Treasury Department. Not that it would make a difference, because the Secretary of the Treasury, Scott Bessent, does whatever this man wants. So I don't even know how much of a difference that makes. But even with a friendly, lockstepped Scott Bessent, they decided not to follow the law. We're just not going to bother. Never mind that the Treasury Secretary is one of my loyal foot soldiers. We're just not going to bother. They need the Republicans, the Democrats do, to stop any of this. The Democrats need the Republicans to stop anything that Trump does. They're going to try, but it's an uphill battle, as we know. These Republicans are absolutely spineless as a whole. And Chris Van Hollen, he recognizes this, and he said, what Republicans are willing to do, he says, what are Republicans willing to do about this? Are Republicans willing to stand up for the Constitution and separation of powers or not? So far, they've been unwilling to do that. They have been unwilling to challenge Trump on any of these issues. And while this is playing out in Congress, the Trump administration is laying the ground to control Venezuelan oil production forever. Forever. Okay? They are right now laying the groundwork to purchase purchase control, exert their control completely over Venezuela's state-run oil company, Petroleas de Venezuela, or the PDVSA. We've talked about it. They are talking about, one way or another, acquiring and marketing the bulk of the PDVSA's oil production. Now, if that happens, if the United States does a hostile takeover of Venezuela's state-run oil production, that will be the ball game, because then it will be the bought and paid for PDVSA controlled by the U.S. government and Chevron pumping the oil. That's the ball game. And they're not talking about a small period of time or a temporary fix. They're talking about indefinitely if they were to acquire the PDVSA. And that is just what they plan to do. And if they do that, they will have control of all the oil reserves, essentially, in the Western Hemisphere. When you factor in deposits, the U.S. Controls, U.S. Companies have production in other oil-producing nations in the Western Hemisphere already. On top of what the U.S. produces, that's just complete control of the oil production off this hemisphere, right in line with the national security strategy. The Don Rowe Doctrine. I can't call it that. I got to try to not call it that. Ed from Chicago, he reached out to me and he said, Brett, you got to stop legitimizing what this guy does. You got to stop using his own clever little nicknames for things. It plays into it. He may be right. He may be right. Maybe I should temper calling it the Don Rowe Doctrine. Even if tempering it down on my end or the media's end or anybody who talks about its end, at least it doesn't make it so readily accessible on the American people's tongue and a part of our lexicon. Maybe we should push that particular rhetoric to the background and just focus on the fact that it's our official document, the National Security Strategy. But this would play right along with it. This falls right into the plan. Right into the plan. Now, see, Trump's got a problem with U.S. oil companies. I already told you about a meeting Friday he's going to have with the U.S. oil companies, ConocoPhillips, Exxon, and others, about investing again in Venezuelan oil. Yeah, we know. Chavez burnt you guys. He burnt you. But we got you this time. This time we're in control. All of those pesky changes by regimes that come in all of a sudden and are far left and against our agenda, that's not going to happen anymore. We control Venezuela now. We're going to control their oil now. It's going to be safe to come in and spend your money. Oh, you don't want to spend your money? Then we're going to spend the American people's money, as he openly talks about subsidizing U.S. oil efforts in Venezuela. He is on a mission, and he's going to meet with them Friday. But like I said, they'll meet with him. They'll meet with him because right now they've got the power. But it's not just in this matter that the U.S. oil companies are irking Don. You see, for a while, he's been getting U.S. oil producers to lower their prices. Right now, as of Wednesday, as of yesterday, it was $56 a barrel. $56 a barrel. Trump has been banging a drum that he wants it to 50 or below, but U.S. oil companies refuse to do that. Because when you hit the $50 mark or so, these oil companies tell you quite simply, that's when it is not even profitable for us anymore, Don, and we're not going to do it. Okay, Don says, no problem. We'll have Venezuela sell us their oil at $50 a barrel instead. We'll just make them. We'll just make them. No big deal. You don't want to play ball? We'll just take Venezuela's oil indefinitely and sell it at the price we want to sell it at. And we're going to lift sanctions, and we're going to, open up lanes, marketing lanes. We're going to produce it, and we're going to distribute it. We'll control all of it. And we'll make the profit that Venezuela should have been making. And we'll sell it at whatever the hell we want to sell it at. Screw the American people, or screw the Venezuelan people. We're not worried about what they want. Okay? We're not worried about what they want. Venezuela's new acting president, Delcy Rodriguez, she said a few things, but her rhetoric is already starting to soften. She is playing the game. She wants to be the one to facilitate this little control change in Venezuela. She wants to be the one to be friendly with the U.S. She likes where she's at, and she's going to try to stay there as the de facto leader. Now, she did call again just yesterday. Delcy Rodriguez called the raid and capture of Maduro a stain on our relationship. But then she says, it's not extraordinary nor irregular having relations, for example, economic ones, between the United States and Venezuela. Venezuela has to have relations with all countries in the hemisphere. That's what she says. Okay, so she right now is signaling she will absolutely be on board with the U.S. acquiring the PDVSA. She is not intending to stand in the way of the real, true goals of this administration. She's not going to do it. She's going to say what she has to say to try to continue to legitimize herself in the eyes of the Venezuelan people, to try to stave off some kind of revolt. But she knows better than to stand in the way of this. She knows better than that. She does. And Levitt, she speaks to this as well when I talk about the sanctions being lifted and the U.S. doing everything it can to make the sale of the Venezuelan oil easier and more profitable. She said that Venezuelan sanctions will be selectively rolled back in the coming days to allow previously sanctioned oil to be sold. And Chris Wright, our energy secretary, also said, we're going to market the crude coming out of Venezuela, first this backed up stored oil, and then indefinitely going forward. Out of Chris Wright's mouth, indefinitely going forward, we will sell the production that comes out of Venezuela on the marketplace. They're telling you exactly what they're going to do. They're telling you exactly what they're going to do, okay? They're telling you exactly what they're going to do. Now, I told you that Cuba, Colombia, and others, they're on the menu. They're on the menu, okay? We talked about Cuba, more strategic geography. Remember the wording of our national security strategy? Cuba is more strategic geography, right? But Colombia definitely falls under mineral production. I explained to you the abundance of gold, the abundance of emeralds, other minerals, including a modest oil reserve. Well, things got a little heated. Therefore, Trump spoke to the Colombian president, Gustavo Petro, on Wednesday. And in that phone call, they agreed that they need to meet at the White House soon. Okay? The call was an attempt to de-escalate tensions between the United States and Colombia. Colombia has built up military force on their Venezuelan border, and a war of words has broken out between Trump and Petro. What war of words? I'll tell you. Earlier this week in a press gaggle, Trump said an operation to depose Petro, whom he accused of involvement in the cocaine trafficking business, he said, it sounds good to me. And said the leftist leader needed to watch his ass. Petro responded. He vehemently denied the drug allegiance and warned that arresting him would, quote, unleash the people's jaguar. Petro said he was prepared to take up arms himself and told Trump to come and get me. Just be careful, because that might be exactly what happens. Trump might do exactly that. And whatever defense or palace guards or any intervention to that you have set up, it better be better than Maduro's. Better be better than Maduro's. Otherwise, he will be successful in coming and getting you. So you might want to watch your words, Petro. Don't forget, in October, the Treasury Department imposed sanctions against Petro, his wife, his sons, his country's foreign minister. The sanctions alleged that Petro and his family and his foreign minister all have ties to illicit drugs. What are they saying now after the phone call? This is important. This is important to Colombians. This matters. What they're saying now. Trump said Wednesday evening after the call that Petro called him to explain the situation of drugs and other disagreements that the pair had. He wrote on Truth Social, I appreciated his call and tone and looked forward to meeting him in the near future. What does Petro say after the call? He told supporters in Bogota on Wednesday that he initiated the call that went on for more than an hour in order to decrease tensions with the U.S. and restore a dialogue. Quote, in the conversation, I made a request that direct communications between the foreign ministries and the presidents be reestablished. If there is no dialogue, there will be war. Man, these Latin American leaders really know how to ramp up the rhetoric, don't they? I mean, geez. He did say the call was respectful. And he also said he explained to Trump what his government has been doing against drug trafficking and presented him with data. Well, Trump has no need for that. Did you compliment him enough? Did you tell him how bigly, strongly, and quickly he is? That's what matters. You presented him with data. We've been trying to do that for quite some time, Mr. Petro. That doesn't really take. That dog don't hunt. Petro also noted that he discussed with Trump the situation in Venezuela. They did talk about it. Colombia, you are on the menu. You are on the menu. Greenland, you're on the menu. Cuba, you're on the menu. Iran, you may be on the menu. Mr. No foreign wars. Mr. America first. How'd that campaign promise work out? As our national security, our national security strategy clearly lays out a plan towards Western hemispheric dominance. Mr. No foreign wars. Okay. All right. I'm gonna leave you with this. Now, I want you to check this out yourself, because I keep circling back to Stephen Miller's kind of running our government, along with Susie Wiles and Marco Rubio, but it appears to be Stephen Miller is actually running our government. The immigration policy, Stephen Miller. So much more, Stephen Miller. And we hear it from some of their own mouths. The Atlantic did an amazing, amazing article. I encourage you to check it out if you want to build up your hate, if you want to hate read on Stephen Miller, if you want more reasons to hate this guy, just check out this article. But I'm going to give you some of the more juicy bits. Okay? Stephen Miller gives direct orders to the FBI, the CBP, Customs and Border Patrol, ICE, HHS, and the Department of Defense. He directly orders all of them. Quote, he pushes everybody to the absolute limit because he knows the clock is ticking. He gets on the phone and yells at everybody. Nobody is spared from his wrath. It was Miller in May who told immigration and custom officials that they need to arrest 3,000 immigrants a day, which is times 10 what they had been arresting a day in 2024. He's the one that upped the ICE hiring surge. That was his baby. 10,000 new officers this month. That was Miller. Doubling the agency's workforce. Okaying money. He gets regular updates on everything immigration related. Detention capacity, deportation flights, border crossings. He oversees all of it. Quote, if there's a problem and you're the owner, you have to fix it quickly. It's not a place where you can say, I have to get back to you. If you say something stupid, he'll tell you to your face. You are expected to perform at a certain level, and there's no excuses for not meeting those expectations. He was the one who orchestrated this capture of Maduro. Along with Rubio, this was their baby. It is Miller who is spearheading the buildup around Greenland. Not just buildup in rhetoric, but a possible actual U.S. military buildup in Greenland to take, annex, by force if necessary, the island, Greenland. This is all Miller. This is all Miller. While Rubio talks about, well, Miller's approach is just meant to pressure Denmark into selling us Greenland. That's bull crap, because Denmark can't sell the U.S. Greenland. Like I explained yesterday, in 1946, that was doable, but Truman wasn't able to get it done. $100 million in gold is what he offered Denmark for Greenland. They declined. And then after that, Greenland gained its territorial autonomy. And they are no longer able to be sold. But Rubio is going to tell you that's the plan. This is all Miller. Immigration, border security, national security, foreign policy, trade, military action, policing, all Miller. Invoking the Alien Enemies Act of 1798, that was Miller. Directing Congress to pass $150 billion extra in spending on Homeland Security, that's Miller. Attacking all of the universities, Harvard, Columbia. Quote, make them pay out of Miller's mouth, that was all Miller. And the authorization to strike boats kinetically in the Caribbean Sea, that is all Miller. All Miller. Trump has described Miller as sitting at the top of the totem pole inside the White House. Not Wiles, not JD, not Marco, not Trump. Out of his own mouth, Miller sits atop the totem pole. And I'm going to leave you with one little exchange. There was a debate prep going on in 2024, in the 2024 election cycle. There was a debate prep going on before Trump took the stage. Miller and some other Trump allies discussing the debate. During this prep, Miller got in a back and forth and started arguing very contentiously with one of Trump's officials, one of Trump's aides, one of his friendlies who was trying to put together this debate prep. They started arguing. Trump was there. At one point, Trump got frustrated with the back and forth and angry. And he said to Stephen Miller, he said, Stephen, if you had it your way, everyone would look exactly like you. To which Stephen Miller took just a second to turn from the argument and reply to Trump, that's correct. And then went back to arguing with the ally. I got news for the Venezuelan people. You don't look like Stephen Miller. You don't look like Stephen Miller. And he is now running the day-to-day of your country. He is now directing the actions of your de facto leader, Delcy Rodriguez. You don't look like him, Venezuela. I really feel for you, and I am afraid for you, the people of Venezuela. We are making plans to rob you, and God help you if Stephen Miller is shaping your domestic policy. I'll be back tomorrow. Thanks for staying up with me, kids. See you tomorrow.